Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of Just Gay Stuff podcast. My name is Jess.
And I'm Lauren. And did you know that we have another special guest this week?
We do. We do. I did know that because I'm prepared, even though we feel sometimes like we are very unprofessional, but we do. We have the absolute pleasure this week of introducing a writer and director of an upcoming queer web series called Kit. So we are so happy to welcome all the way from Central Coast in New South Wales, Phoenix Frost.
Hello, Phoenix.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No
No
worries.
Thanks for wanting to come on.
Yeah, thanks for wanting to join us because we're a bit silly and a bit stupid.
It's good to be silly.
Yeah, life is far too short and it's far too serious. I want to start off by saying I think that your name is such a famous name. Phoenix Frost. Like, we haven't heard anything.
That is a cool name.
Haven't heard anything about your project yet, but I'm like, I'm sure he'll get a Logie.
That's why I picked it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One of the perks of being able to pick your own name, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, Phoenix, why don't you tell us a bit about your project, Kit?
Okay, so it's a web series and it's got 6 episodes. They're ranging about like 7 to 15 minutes long, so it's not super long, but it's about a transgender man named Kit, and he accidentally falls pregnant with his fiance after an intimate night because there's a misconception
Yeah.
that testosterone is an effective method of birth control, and it's not.
Yeah.
There are several trans guys who get pregnant on testosterone. So the thing about the web series is that Kit actually, like, people around him don't know that he's trans.
Yeah.
Obviously, his partner knows and his family know, but that's it pretty much. So even his own mother-in-law, like future mother-in-law, doesn't know, and she's a bit homophobic.
Wow, that's a lot of
There's
pressure.
whole story there. It stars a trans lead,
Oh, yay.
and most of our cast and crew are also queer.
Love it.
I think it's about 75% of the combined main cast and crew are queer.
That's so good.
That's the best.
So at least that's who openly identifies. Obviously, you can't force people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a little bit about it.
And so what inspired that storyline? Is it literally just that miseducation behind birth control and testosterone and all of those things that play into a trans person's life?
Usually when I'm writing stuff, I draw a lot from my own experience, but this one is definitely not it.
You're like, I just
I've,
need to put that out there.
I have had a hysterectomy. It's never going to happen. Like, it's not on the cards. But what I was thinking, because outside of filmmaking and stuff, I have a very regular, boring job.
Yeah.
And it's super repetitive, super physical. Another thing too is people at my work, up until recently, no one knew I was trans. I was like a cis dude,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So I was thinking one day, what if I had to hide something? What if there was something on the line and they were going to find out? And I feel like, you know, a pregnancy is one of those things that would be super hard to hide.
Yeah,
Like,
can only
after a
hide it
while,
for so long.
you'd have to figure out whether you want to stay in the job or quit, or so that's kind of where it started. And it kind of just moved on from there.
Yeah, wow.
It's kind of like blink and it happened, really.
Yeah. But being a creative, I'm sure that you think about all these different scenarios in your head every day while
All
you
the
are.
time.
Yeah.
When I'm at work, it's my escape. Like,
Yeah.
I'll just be doing my job and thinking of being anywhere but there, in my own world where all these stories are happening.
Do you go home often and write them all down?
When I remember, I have ADHD, so the memory isn't that great.
You need like a little recording device to be able to
Yeah.
like cliff notes.
I do sometimes when I have a really good idea, I go to the bathroom and just quickly
Yeah.
write it down.
So going off that storyline that you're bringing to the forefront of a trans man becoming pregnant and not being able to hide that. Did you ever watch The L Word? I just have this thought process that everybody who's queer has watched The L Word, and I thought you're a lot younger than us, so maybe you haven't seen it, but...
I've watched the remake of it,
Oh, okay.
the reboot.
The
I'm
Gen
not sure if I've
Q.
watched all of it, but I definitely watched the first season.
Okay. The only reason I ask
So
is
I wouldn't
because
know.
there's a trans character in the first series of The L Word named Max who accidentally falls pregnant as well. And so that was the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned your storyline for Kit, and how the L Word only really just touched the surface of that issue. So
Yeah.
for you to be able to delve into the depths of that actual story. I'm really interested to see how you go about it.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a watch.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And the project is in post-production now. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of getting a project like this off the ground? Obviously, there's a lot to do once the story's been written.
Yeah. So for me, it was a little bit of a nightmare.
I feel like every writer, creative person says that.
Yeah. First of all, I wrote it. I applied for funding with my local council and they said no, but rightfully so because it was a kind of half-baked idea at that point. So I kind of went a bit gung-ho about it. So after that, I was like, it's not good then. I'm just going to not do it.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to feel like that.
Yeah. And then I was like, I'll just sit it in my idea graveyard, as I call it. I just left it there for a few months. And then one of my friends said, hey, we should make something again. We haven't made something in a while. And I was like, well, I kind of have this idea. It's kind of half done. And then that person was like, yes, let's do it. Come on. So then I wrote a few more drafts and then there was more funding to be done. Doesn't come out of nowhere.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I was really lucky and I picked up like a temporary job that paid really well, but it was only for a few months. And I just basically saved from that and applied for more funding through like Screen Australia, but didn't get anything.
Damn.
So I basically just self-funded it. I made my own money. There was a post I made in like a neighborhood group for Newtown because that's where a lot of queer people are.
Yeah.
They're not on the Central Coast much. So I posted there. I'm like, I'm looking for a trans actor because I was very adamant, need to be trans person. That's one of my things. That just has to happen. So I like went on there looking for a trans actor. Didn't find a trans actor through there. Instead, a person made a comment and they were like, you are exploiting the trans community by doing this.
What?
Trans people can't work for free because I said like it was unpaid because I was funding it myself and I'm not well off. Like
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I understand that it's hard for trans people to get a job. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Got put on blast a little bit from a random person. And then another person saw it and was like, hey, I can help you out with the funding. I'm starting up an event. It's a lesbian nightclub event. And we're looking for someone to do cloakroom stuff. You can do it and you can keep all the funding, like all the money that you get from it.
Wow.
That's
And I was
so
like,
cool.
oh, nice. So we got a little bit there. But in the end, I think the project was worth about $5,000. Like that's how much we saved. So that was our budget. And luckily I had a lot of people work for free or favors and I got some discounts too. And some people donated their locations, which was really good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really lucky with a lot of it. But then one of the locations that we got for free was the second or third day of filming. And it was the first day at this location. The guy didn't show up to let us in.
Oh, no.
So that was one of our hurdles.
Yeah.
It was just one scene that we needed for that place too. And that would end up being the last thing that we shot. But I was originally planning to like shoot it all within like 2 or 3 months. But we ended up shooting it over 9 months.
Wow. The irony that it was over 9 months.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
funny. It was one of those things like afterwards I'm like, oh, you literally could have had a baby.
Jess didn't even realize until I just said
Yeah.
that. So her face was like, "Meh."
I had a slow moment.
Yeah, so it ended up being over 9 months because obviously when you get people working for free, you can't tell them to take time off their jobs or anything.
Yeah.
Took a little bit longer than I expected, but we're here now. We're in post-production. We got there.
We made it.
Yeah.
And what was it like rallying all of the crew together? Did you know most of the people or did you have to put calls out for crew as well?
I was really lucky because I did my bachelor's degree in film and television production. So I had top surgery during the time, so I deferred a trimester or two to like sort that out.
Yeah.
So I ended up in like 3 different cohorts. Good networking opportunity. So I ended up getting people from uni and they were all keen to do it.
That's great.
That's cool.
I feel like any degree that you do within the arts is literally just to network.
Oh, literally.
Pretty much. Like I've been making short films since I was 10 and I self-taught everything pretty much. My uni degree was kind of useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a music degree, so I know exactly what that's
Yeah,
like.
it was just a network or like, I think I learned maybe 1 or 2 new skills, but that was about it. I already knew everything else.
But it's all about the people that you connected with. And
Yeah.
now you've got this amazing thing in post-production.
Like a queer crew and everything.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Have my people.
Yeah,
have your
and
people.
that's so important, isn't it? Having your people.
Yeah.
You mentioned doing a call out for a trans actor and how adamant you were about that. So how important do you feel that trans stories are needed to be visible and accessible to the general public?
Super important. It's a bit of a kind of like a broken record sometimes when I like say it, but when I was younger, I didn't really have any representation. I look back on it and every kind of trans representation that was on there was like trans feminine to begin with. So not me. And second of all, it was mainly just like the butt of a joke on like the things I was seeing. So it's good to have those stories where it is positive and also where it's beyond the coming out.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's a lot of queer stories in general where it's like coming out, finding my feet, and that's it. There's not really much where it continues past that.
Yet the world still keeps turning
Yeah.
after these stories
Like
happen.
we still exist.
Yeah.
We come out multiple times a day, but like
And that's another thing that we don't talk about, right? Is that you don't just come out once. You don't
yeah,
just
you
come out to your
all the
family.
time.
All the time.
Every time you start a new job, every time you meet a new person, every
Yeah.
time someone new enters your life or passes by, it's
And sometimes you forget about it.
yeah.
I've had people at my work and I was like talking to this guy and I was talking about a family member and I pretty much said, oh, it's really strange that they don't understand like trans women, but they understand me as a trans man. And I just said it blatantly to this guy
Yeah.
and he didn't know at that point. But
Mm.
he was a safe person. Like I knew it was all right. And he kind of just looked at me and he's like, oh, okay, cool. And then like we were talking for a bit and then like he was like, I now know two trans people. I know this person and I know you.
Yeah, right.
That's cool.
And it was just so funny, like, because I completely forgot.
You just spoke on that person being a safe person, but have you ever experienced in the workplace or in life in general places where you haven't felt safe?
In the workplace, specifically, there was a guy who I worked with. He was older. He was all right. He was a pretty nice dude. And I was thinking, because when you're like stealth, which is like when you pass a cis, it's one of those things where you kind of balance what you're telling people sometimes, and it can get exhausting, honestly.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like a week or two before this, maybe I should just tell everyone at work, bite the bullet and just do it. Anyway, I'm at work with this guy and this very androgynous person walks past and I like looked at them. They had like a really cool tattoo or something, like a Zelda tattoo, and I was looking at it. That triggered something in this guy's mind where he was like, we have to be careful, us men, because there are people out there who try to trick us into thinking they're women.
Oh
And
no.
I'm just standing there like, if only you knew
Yeah.
who you were talking to right now. Like, oh my God.
As a trans person, is it important to you to be able to pass as cisgendered, or does it not bother you and it's just the explaining of the side to people that may not understand that gets tiring?
For me personally, like, obviously people can live and do whatever they want. When it comes to your identity, just be yourself. For me, I just kind of become, like, for me, it was Phoenix the trans man in like different places I worked at for so long. And I just kind of got sick of that. Because they didn't want to know anything else. Like, they just wanted to know this person's trans, and that was it. So now it's like I'm just Phoenix, not Phoenix the trans man, or like Phoenix the queer, or whatever.
Yeah.
So for me, like, it's kind of important, but if you don't ask, I won't tell you kind of thing. But if you do ask, I'll tell you, as long as I think you're a good enough person.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
safe person.
If someone came up to me with aggression and was like, oh, I heard that you were trans or whatever, I'd be like, okay, well, you were wrong.
Well, you're not going to risk your safe space.
No.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone needs to risk their safe space for the point of coming out for someone else's well-being or anything like that. It's never for
And I
somebody
think
else.
however you present yourself, it doesn't matter. If you identify a certain way, you identify that way. Like,
Yeah.
that's just how you are.
I only asked that question because I find it interesting, and we like to understand everybody else and, you know, have that understanding. But for you, as probably feeling like your authentic self in the body that you have now, that it would be awesome to be just seen as a cisgendered male.
I remember when like it first started happening because I went on testosterone in 2019 and then COVID happened. And in 2020 I got top surgery and then my hysterectomy like a year later. So I pretty much went into lockdowns and stuff, not very long on T. And then I came out pretty much like this.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was like really early on T and how exciting it was whenever someone would flip up, or like if they're like, oh, hey, buddy. And then they're like, oh, hang on, maybe not. Well, like if they got confused, it was very exciting.
Yeah.
because I was like not just a woman.
Like it allowed you to feel authentically you.
I kind of forget sometimes that I'm trans. Like I'm just me.
Because you're just you.
Yeah,
exactly.
but that
You're
must
just
be
you.
awesome.
It is great. Some people like choose to be stealth, and that's perfectly fine, like completely stealth. But I kind of like go between sometimes, like, oh, maybe I could just go completely stealth and erase all my past and just start anew. But then there are people who like say to me, I realized who I was because of you. Because you were
Yeah.
active online about it, or because this story came out, or because this came out. So, like, that kind of thing, I don't want to give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. And so, talking about your trans journey kind of later and how you began on testosterone, do you want to take us all the way back to when you started to feel like you were living in a different body? What was that journey like?
Okay, so
Tell us everything, as deep as you want to go.
very, very, very first memory was when I was 4. And I have a friend who I've known my entire life, and she can attest to this. I used to play like moms and dads as a kid, as a lot of kids did. And I always had to be the older brother or the dad, like always. And if someone said, no, you can't do that, it was like, why not?
You were mad. You're like, I'm not playing.
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean? But this friend really loved playing mums and dads with me because she always wanted to be the mom.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, yeah, it just meant that I didn't have anyone to argue with. So I had that. And there was also, I used to play like Ninja Turtles on the playground and stuff like that. Had to be Raphael, couldn't be April or whoever.
Yeah.
Had to be like one of the turtles. And also in like school plays and stuff, I always chose the masculine roles. I think I was like 11 or something. We had like a drama unit at school, and we had to pick our like fairy tale plays. We chose Beauty and the Beast, and I had to be the Beast. There was no question. Like a lot of it just kind of it's small things because we were a group of girls, quotation marks.
Yeah.
And there were like roles available for me if I wanted to present femininely, but I was like, no, I have to be the Beast, and I have to like later on in life, like in year 10, we did Narnia, and I had to be Mr. Tumnus. I like spent so long memorizing the lines. I had to smash that audition and be Mr. Tumnus, and I was. So
Yay!
yeah, so there are like those little moments over time that you look back on later and you're like, how did no one know? The closet was glass.
The door was see-through. Come on.
It was right there. Like my mom, when I first came out, my parents didn't really get it at first. My dad even said, oh, you were baptized under this name. You will always be that name. And I was like, oh, great. He's never going to get it. But now, if he's in the workplace and like trans people come up as a topic, he's like, I have a trans son and he's awesome.
Oh, I love
yay.
that.
He'll like advocate and stuff. So when I first came out, there was a whole lot of my dad was like, you were never into cars or sports or anything like that. And I'm like, no, but that doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah. That doesn't make me more of a boy.
yeah, like a lot of guys aren't into cars and sports. Like that's just how they are. There was a whole misconception there, and I spoke with my mom about it, and I basically just explained it to her like, when you get called your name, you respond to it and you know it's you. But like when I get called this name, it's not me. It doesn't feel like me.
Yeah.
Or like when I get called she, her pronouns, it doesn't feel like you're talking to me. That was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
And then I ended up meeting my now spouse, and we met in high school, and I came out to them and their family before anyone else really because they felt safe. And I pretty much just said in like a text message because I was that awkward, I was like, oh, I think I want to be a boy ...
Yeah.
And they just said, yeah, that makes sense. You seem more happy when you're like in boy styles is what I called it. Because I did this whole thing for a period of time where and I'm not saying that this identity isn't a real thing. Like a lot of people do experience it. It just wasn't me. But I settled on being gender fluid.
Yeah.
And I just tried to tell myself that maybe I can be okay with she, her pronouns, but it wasn't real. So I used to go, oh yeah, I'm in boy styles today, or I'm in girl styles today. And my partner said, oh yeah, you're more comfortable in boy styles. So that was the first person I came out to. And then eventually the internet before my parents.
Wow.
My parents didn't like that, which I kind of get it now.
Yeah.
They got a lot of phone calls that night. They were like, what's going on? Because they didn't even have Facebook or anything. And I went on Facebook and pretty much wrote like an essay. And they were like, what are you talking about? I've got like these screenshots from like your uncle, and they were all freaking out. Why is everyone freaking out? And I was just like, why aren't they talking to me about it? The whole thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of like in the closet, out of the closet, in the closet, out of the closet.
I think a lot of people experience that. And that's really good that you have a good relationship with your family now.
Yeah. I am really lucky that they chose to grow and learn.
Yeah, the education.
Like, I didn't
part.
think my dad would ever accept me at all. But like now he's like
represent.
Yeah, when he like came out, because we weren't even Catholic or anything. Like we went to Catholic schools, kind of like that thing where you just say you are, but you're not.
Yeah. That's like me. I was
Were you?
christened Catholic, but we have never practiced.
Went through the whole initiation thing through school, all that, but didn't go to church or anything.
Yeah,
It was
neither.
put on paper, really. But then my dad came out with that, and I was like, what do you mean?
People tend to grasp at straws sometimes.
Yeah,
Hey.
it's like the Bible also says don't eat shrimp, but I see you eating prawns. Like, what are you doing?
You can't cherry pick the Bible.
But that's one thing I think your dad has become this advocate for you. And I think that's a testament to it coming down to when you actually know a trans person and can relate to a trans person and have trans people visibly in your lives, you understand the process a lot more, and you understand that that person has gone through a dysphoria and has gone through life not feeling like themselves. So your dad has witnessed that and has had you to talk to and to talk him through it. And obviously he's one of the good ones that sat there and listened to you.
Yeah, there was a moment where I didn't think that I'd ever get through to him, but I think he did his own learning. And also my sister, she's great. Like she was amazing from the beginning. She's my younger sister. My first time coming out, I was sitting at the table with my family, and my mum just said to me something like, oh yeah, you must be my daughter or something. I don't know what I said or did, but she related to it. And my sister just says, no, son.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really funny because she was also like 12 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, how do you understand it? But they don't.
Yeah.
I think she's also educated them a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's taught ideals. So, and I think the younger generation are a lot more open and have had a better education and discussion around topics such as
I've
trans.
heard a thing that a lot of the really younger generation find it weird that people have to come out.
Yeah. Which isn't that
Like,
awesome
they're
for
like,
the next generation?
why?
They don't have to. They can just be sexually fluid, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's just expected. Like, it's just whatever.
Speaking on the younger generation, what advice would you give to a young trans person who's struggling to come out?
Make sure that you can do it safely. Have a backup plan always. Like, even if it's just a couple of clothes in a backpack to go with a friend or something. Like, make sure that you have a plan B just in case. In the ideal world, it will go smoothly. Life would happen and they would love you no matter what, but always have a plan B just in case. And if you can't do it in that place, wait until you're somewhere safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. I'm wondering if you could describe to the listeners what gender dysphoria felt like for you.
It's very interesting to describe. So obviously there was the whole like name and pronouns thing, just not feeling like me at all. But I've heard some really good ways to describe it. One of a really popular trans YouTuber, he said that it's like going your whole life wearing the same pair of shoes, but they feel a little bit uncomfortable and you don't know why. And then years later, someone tells you, oh, you've got them on the wrong feet. And that's kind of what it's like.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or being told to write with your non-dominant hand, and that's just been life. And then you learn that you're actually the other hand dominant.
Yeah.
And suddenly everything feels fluent.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Then there's also like the more wanting to rip off your skin kind of vibes and not wanting to shower because you don't want to look down at yourself, or covering mirrors or anything like that. But there's a whole lot of things that it kind of feels like. But it's one of those things that you just need to experience to really get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's also one thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that they're never going to understand exactly how you feel because that's not their journey.
And that's okay. We don't want you to completely understand it. We just want you to listen.
Listen and accept.
Some people don't understand why I prefer my sauce in the fridge and not the cupboard, but I don't have to try and make them like eat my
You
sauce.
don't have to get in a debate with it.
Yeah, exactly. Just fucking keep your hands off my sauce. I always try and bring conversations back to the simplicities of those kind of things that are like preferable, because that's what people understand, and then they go, oh, it's
Yeah,
not a
I'm
big
being
deal like
stupid.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you spoke about not really having representation, or the representation was more like the femme trans kind of vibe. So what did representation kind of look like for you?
It's really weird because when I was younger, I just saw myself as one of the boys. I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
I used to love strawberry shortcake as a kid.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be Huckleberry Pie. Like, I wanted to be that guy, like the skateboardy cool dude. Like, I just
Yeah.
wanted to be him. And I saw myself as him. There wasn't a difference or anything. But I think my first actual trans representation I saw was when I was 18. And it was The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Love
yeah.
that show.
Yeah, it was Theo. I think he walked into the room and he just said, "It's Theo now."
Yeah.
And I just remember going, oh my God, really? Like, that's so cool. But that was like the first one that I remember. Then I was already like early transition, like I'd socially transitioned at that point. But yeah, growing up, I just saw myself as any boy, really.
Do you think you would have seen yourself differently had you had that representation even earlier in your life? Do you think that would have made a difference for you somewhere along the way to be more comfortable coming out earlier on, or?
It's not so much for me to understand it, but I think if there was representation that my parents could have watched,
Yeah.
then maybe they could have seen the signs. They would have been like, oh, that sounds like what Phoenix does. Or like, Phoenix likes to wrestle with his brother instead of playing with Barbie dolls and playing Batman and dresses up as Spider-Man all the time. Like, that sounds very similar. Maybe we should talk to someone about that. And sometimes it is just a tomboy thing. I'm not saying that everyone who does that is trans.
Yeah.
But I feel like if it was on screen, that they could have seen it and they could have been like, oh, there is something possible here. Let's test it, kind of thing.
And then even if they never brought it to you, when you eventually brought it to them, there would have been a bit more
An
understanding.
understanding, yeah.
There would have been something that they could have researched before that instead of flying off the handle.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a bit about your trans journey and we've talked a bit about your project that you've got in the works at the moment. But you did mention in your email to us that you felt like you always wanted to be an author, and then that carried over to you presenting visuals to your family. And then you had your first film festival at 14 years old.
That's
so
amazing.
can you tell us where the creative side to you started?
Yes, I learned how to read and write, and I was like, I'm going to write stories because I loved reading books and stuff. And I used to come home from school with these folded up bits of paper and all these like really bad drawings. I'm not a drawing person at all. And I basically like would write these stories about whatever I could find or whatever I could think of. And I'd bring it home and I'd be so excited, like, oh, look at this. And eventually my mum was like, you need to be a little bit more descriptive with your scenes. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess. So then I discovered PowerPoint presentations. And because I was undiagnosed autistic and ADHD, I really loved to research.
Yeah.
Crazy. So what I did is I would put together these PowerPoint presentations. I remember one was around Christmas time, a journey around the world at Christmas. And I would like go what every country does around Christmas time. And it was like a visual kind of story. Like you'd have these two characters and it was interactive and there's a storyline to it. And then I had someone show me Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah.
The OG.
All the
Yeah.
possibilities opened up.
All the possibilities. So I had Windows Movie Maker and my dad had an old camcorder, and I was like, I'm gonna record things. I would like go to my parents and I'd interview them. Tell me a bit about yourself and just random things. And then I would pair up what they were talking about with photos of it. I made like basically little documentaries.
Yeah,
That's so
full doco
cute.
style.
And then there was footage of like my brother's football game, stuff like that. And I basically just threw it all together. And I also found that I was able to express my thoughts and feelings through it. My brother and I had a fight. I made a video for him to watch, explaining my feelings.
Creative outlets allow that for our
Yeah.
feelings.
And then later in life, I would make short films about dysphoria, but I was like not quite out yet to anyone. So I just had those there to have a little outlet. And yeah, my first film festival, my sister's primary school had a book week competition where she had to like come up with some short film, and I was like right into it at this point. Like I was learning how to do effects, I was editing really well, and she was like, "Oh, can you help me?" So we put together a story, and it ended up like being about an alien invasion that was coming through books.
Oh, that's cool.
It only went for like a minute or two. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to submit it to this film festival, which was in Melbourne. I didn't think much of it. I didn't even tell my parents about it.
Oh, wow.
I
Went
just
rogue.
sent it to them. And then next thing I get an email, oh, congratulations, you were one out of 32 short films that were chosen.
Wow.
We're going to screen your thing in Melbourne. We've also got like the local newspaper coming to interview you. And I'm just like, oh, I should tell my mom.
You're like, yeah, probably.
Because they're about to show up in a few days. So I like told my mom, and she was like, oh my God, cool. So this person came and like interviewed us, and it was really fun, really cool. I was like famous for like a day.
That's awesome.
My mum saved up money to take us to Melbourne to watch it, and we're sitting there in the cinema, and it comes on the screen, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But unfortunately, it cut off early because I sent them a corrupted file.
Oh, no.
So, you know, a little bit of a moment there. And every time now that I'm showing someone something, I'm like, please work, please work, please work, please work.
You have trauma from that.
Yeah, I remember just sitting there, and it ended not too early, like it was got through most of it. But I just remember sitting there and going, oh,
Where's the rest?
we came all this way to watch this. I ended up saying to my mom, oh, can you make sure that Dad doesn't find out about this?
Oh, really?
And she was like, okay. And I was really embarrassed. I don't know why. I didn't want to disappoint him specifically, which was a bit strange. But
I feel like when you're a creative, you are your own harshest critic, but we are also, as creatives, the first people to put our projects down to someone else. It's like, oh, I have this idea. Look, I know it's not good, but here it is. It's like if we tell ourselves that first, then if they think it's not as good, then it's an easier blow.
It's like a protection mechanism, I guess.
I put my armor up, so if you hate it, doesn't matter.
You can just pretend that you don't like it, even if you think it's a really good idea. Like, it's not quite there yet. We can improve on it.
Yeah, that's how I feel when I have a song idea and I take it to my singing partner, and then I have to remember that I've heard some songs that are actually famous and they're quite shit, and then I need to just back my own stuff.
Look, even though the movie cut off, you still kept going with it, and now you've created all
look
these
what you've
amazing
done.
stuff.
I think it was one of those moments where either I could have just given it up or like kept going. And I was like, I'm going to make something else, and I'm going to come back another year. Ended up going to other film festivals later, but I took a little bit of a break because I was at school. So
yeah,
that's fair. But it's also like now it's super important because now you've created this incredible web series that's about to be trans representation for the world, essentially, which is so important because there's not enough trans representation out there.
And speaking back on that web series, where can we watch Kit when it's done?
So I don't have an answer yet.
Ooh.
Lucrative, I like it.
Because I did co-direct it, and the other director is the one white cishet guy on our team. So we are talking about pitching to streaming sites and hopefully getting it on there. But our current plan is that we're going to have some ticketed events around Sydney.
That's cool.
And then we're going to, probably around Mardi Gras time, have a public release.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That's
so
amazing.
we can jump on that rainbow capitalism bandwagon.
Yes, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That sounds really good. And before we go, we actually have a couple of fun questions for you.
We do. What is your favourite movie from a filmmaker's perspective?
And why?
And why?
Ooh.
I know it might take a bit of thinking, so feel free to take up the thinking time.
I was like, this is the first part of a question.
I really like the movie Tick, Tick, Boom.
Oh, yeah. It's a musical, Jess.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's a musical.
Lauren loves musicals.
The reason I love it so much is because it's about a creative person who is having difficulties within their field, and it's really relatable. For me, whenever I'm writing, I'm listening to that soundtrack. So it kind of gives me that inspiration. I have a bit of a soft spot for that. And it's not really about like the film techniques or anything or the writing of it. It's just the message that I relate to.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. This next one and you also might have to think about it. In creating a movie, if you could have any two actors, dead or alive, in a film, who would they be?
Ooh.
That's the harder one, right?
That is the harder one.
Because I could like go like completely nerdy and be like some superhero. Like,
Definitely go
actor.
nerdy. We are the biggest nerds ever.
Or like I could go like someone who I just really want to like talk to and like work with.
Yeah.
I think Elliot Page.
Hell yes. That's nerdy and awesome.
So obviously he's important.
Yeah.
And probably even just going off the whole like favorite movie, Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. Are you a Spider-Man fan?
Yeah.
I love Spider-Man.
There's a whole like theory about Spider-Man being trans.
Really?
It's like a fan theory, obviously. Spider-Man's trans. He like has to wear a binder and stuff like that. Like if you want to do a deep dive on it, it's interesting.
I did hear that Spider-Man is a very good character for queer representation because wearing a mask and wearing a suit, you could literally be anybody and it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
You are
You're
just Spider-Man.
And that's it.
Well, I used to dress up as Spider-Man as a kid, so...
Yeah.
Did you?
No, I didn't, but I would like to. I'm too short.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I look like Stumpy Man.
You'd be like the 5-year-old kids dressed up as Spider-Man.
Yeah, that would be me.
Me too.
This is a weird thought that I just had because you were talking about listening to Tick Tick Boom's soundtrack to help you write things. This is such a weird and left of field thing for me to say. But in high school,
Oh, God.
when I had to write an assessment, taking it back. When I had to write an assessment, the only song that I could listen to that actually allowed me to get through whatever I was writing was Superman by Eminem.
Really?
How ridiculous is that?
That's mental. I love that song.
I used to do the thing during like the HSC. When I'd be studying, I'd be listening to a song on repeat. And I was really good at memorizing lyrics. So when I was sitting there like studying, I would associate like different parts of what I was reading to the lyrics.
Oh.
That's clever.
So I'm sitting there like doing the HSC and I would just be like, okay, I need something with this word. What was the word I attributed it to? Okay, it was this. Like
That's
this
really
particular
clever.
line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's clever.
It was the only way I could study.
See, I couldn't do that. I'd get distracted and I'd write the song lyrics instead of it.
I did
used
do
to
that
do
once or twice. But something that was really interesting is during our like mock exams, we had to do like a creative writing task. And I wrote a letter to like a fan kind of thing. Like I just went out that way. And I signed it as Phoenix Frost.
Wow.
But the thing is, I was set on Phoenix as my first name. But Frost came when me and my partner got married. We chose our last name.
Aww.
We don't want to like combine our last names. I had a very annoying, hard to spell last name.
Same.
I didn't want that. So I was like, oh, let's just pick one. And Frost actually came from, we met in English class. So doing Robert Frost.
Robert
poem,
Frost.
The Road Less Taken or something. My partner had written this really good essay that was like getting shown to the class, but accidentally wrote the poet's name as Nick Frost. And I jokingly called them Frosty after that. Like I was like, oh, hey Frosty, as a joke. So then later we just decided Frost is our last name because of that.
That's so cute. That's the cutest origin story of a name ever.
In your HSC, you literally manifested your future name.
Yeah, and I even was like talking about being a filmmaker in it, and like I was accepting some filmmaker award in it. And it was
That's
just-
awesome.
You were just projecting, manifesting.
I 100% believe in manifestation. Lauren and I talk about it all
Me
the
too.
time. And I think when you're a creative, you need to have that to hold on to because it's important to be able
Yeah.
to see what we want to achieve in front of us and then know the steps to take to get there.
I used to have a piece of paper on my wall, and it said finish high school and then go to uni, bachelor film degree, and then next step Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming.
You're on your way.
You're on your way and you have to
And
believe
it was
that.
just so funny. Like looking back on it, I'm just like, oh my god! Like it was just right there beside my bed.
We also have one up beside our bed too.
Yeah. Ours doesn't say Hollywood though. That's totally your
That's
sector.
all yours. Speaking of Hollywood, this is a good segue. Speaking of
is.
Hollywood, what's next for you, Phoenix, film-wise?
I'm going to probably take a break from actually creating a full project.
Yeah.
I'll probably just go back to writing for a little bit, for like a year or something, and see what comes out of that. But I also kind of want to do a documentary soon
That'd be cool.
about like society's obsession with like sex and sexualities.
Oh, please do
Because I
that.
feel like that's a good deep dive I could go on. So I may do that in the next year, but I also may just be writing for the next year.
Either way, it's creative.
Yeah, because this web series took so long. It's been literally all I've done.
Yeah.
living and breathing it. Like every second of the day, I'm thinking about it. I'm doing something for it. Like, so I kind of need to take a break.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's always such a wonderful time when we have a guest and we get to discover their projects and they get to tell us all about themselves. And we do have so many good creatives on Australian shores. So thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much,
having me.
Phoenix. No worries.
I saw that you have a socials tag on Instagram for the web series. So we'll put all of that info in the show notes to the episode so any of our listeners can get following on that.
Yes, please do.
And then all of your info that comes out about where we can see it and where we can watch it, everyone will know.
Yep, perfect.
And we can't wait for everyone to seek it.
We'll be following along and we can't wait to see where it goes for you.
Thank you.
Well, we hope everyone has had an absolutely wonderful time listening to Phoenix's journey and all about his creative journey and what's coming up next.
Yeah.
So until next week.
Remember to
Day gay, motherfuckers.
Thanks
Thank you so
much,
much,
Phoenix. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.